What's up, everybody? My name is David Caldwell. I'm with Krista Britton. We're principal real estate brokers at Hillshire Realty Group with eXp Realty. We're going to do the most boring video on YouTube again, where we talk about the Portland housing market. Kind of in retrospect, we're going to review last month's numbers and talk about what we're seeing today and what it likely means. So if you have questions about a particular area, leave them in the comments. You know, we'd love if we could start getting some people to interact with us. I'm always surprised that there's quite a few people that watch this entire video every month. So thank you for doing that. But why don't we get started talking about everyone's favorite topic, what is happening with the average sales price. So when we compare, and actually I'm gonna put it up on the screen. Let's share this because I have it, thanks to Caitlin. So when we compare the first half of 2022 to 2021 through July, we've seen the average sales price increase 9.4%. So we've seen an increase from $567,800 up to $620,900. And we've seen the median keep pace at about 10%. And what I'll say is important to note about this is if you're a home buyer or a home seller, you're starting to see more price reductions in the marketplace. And we've been seeing that for several months now. Now, the 12-month rate of appreciation has actually been really stable throughout that. We've seen the 12-month rate of appreciation kind of ping pong around 10 to 11% since February. So if you go back and watch these, it's something that we've talked about. There can be price reductions in a market and you can still see housing price appreciation. That's actually a normal real estate market. So that's something we're paying close attention to. By the way, 9% appreciation is a very high rate. I would expect that rate of appreciation to decline. I think at the end of last year, I was thinking this year was going to be like around 6 to 8% appreciation for the year. I'm feeling kind of smart right now, maybe a little bit lucky, but the average sales price is increasing, and that is a really strong indication that we still have serious buyers in the market. But that is only talking about the houses that are selling, not the houses that aren't selling. What's up?
So quick question, David. When we're looking at the market report, right, it's saying that the inventory has increased to 2 months. Do you see that having anything to do with the prices, you know, people doing price markdowns, things like that?
Yeah, well, you know, I think that when we look at months of inventory, so people look at it as inventory, months of inventory. So it describes pace as much as it describes opportunity for a buyer. So what's 2 months of inventory mean? Well, at the current pace of sales, if no new homes came to the market, everything would be sold in 2 months. That's pretty amazing, right? When we look at average days on market year to date, it's 24 days. So the pace of sales overall for the year has been much faster than months of inventory. Now, people were freaking out when we had 2 months of inventory in the past. Like there's no homes to buy. There's nothing. And we'll look at a slide in a minute where we actually have the fewest number of new listings that have come to the market year to date in the last 5 years. So does that months of supply make people do price reductions? Of course. Now, if you're a would-be home seller, what I would caution you in is not trying to create the market circumstances of 2021. And what do I mean by that? You're unlikely to get 10, 15 offers. You're unlikely to get 50 showings. The pandemonium's out of the market. And if you're trying to create super low days on market and that kind of environment, you're going to undersell your home. You're just going to undersell it. In a normal real estate market, there's homes that sell in a short period of time, and there's homes that sell with higher days on market. But if you're trying to create the market opportunity of 2021, when it comes to showings, when it comes to multiple offers, I believe that that's going to be an expensive task. So going back to where the average sales price is, when we think about months of inventory, I would argue we're in the best seller's market we've ever been in. because the average sales price has never been higher. And what's really important to a seller, in my experience of doing this for 15 years, is average sales price, right? People want the highest price. They don't care about the lowest days on market.
They want that money.
People want the highest price. Now, the months of inventory is creating opportunity for you if you're a buyer, because there are some agents out there that are giving bad education. I think that there's agents that understand the real estate market, and the real estate market being what's happening with pricing, inventory, market absorption, etc. And then there's agents that understand how to process the transaction. They know how to fill out paperwork, and they want to talk about the comp down the street. So there are people that are doing price reductions too quickly for whatever reason. And then there's houses that deserve to have the price reduced. But what I love about this market is if you've been doing it for a long time, you can really see a good deal and a bad deal. Starting to become much more apparent. So to go back to your question, what impact is months of inventory going to have on price? Well, statistically, actually, like most buyers markets kick in at 7 months of inventory. And buyers market meaning buyers have leverage and home values are basically declining or flattening off. So we've had way more than 2 months of inventory and had appreciation. So if we go back actually to like the pandemic, 2020 when things hit, in April, we had 2.4 months, and in May, we had 2.3 months. Now, those seemed like sleepy months, but we were also like trapped inside of our houses. We have 2 months of inventory. Not crazy. Where should we go next in this conversation?
Let's see.
Why don't we do new listings? Let's go.
Okay.
Let's go listings, pending sales, and then closed sales.
Okay.
So, hey, if we look at new listings, like we talked about, this is what they look like over the last 5 years, year to date through June. Oh, sorry, I thought we had the lowest number. We had the second lowest number of new listings. My memory deceived me. But this is an important thing to look at, right? Because this is options for a buyer. This is also competition if you're a seller. Now, this is the entire market and isn't indicative of maybe necessarily your price band. We have a home for sale in Hillsboro, and there's 40 active listings between 500,000 and 550. And there's been, I think when I looked earlier today, it was like 32 pending sales in the last 30 days in that same price band. There's almost enough buyers for every house in that price band, but there's not quite enough buyers for every house in that price band. So, that's something to think about, right? We're starting to see new listings outpace pending sales by a wider margin than normal. But last year in Portland, we had 41,000 homes come to the market roughly, and roughly 36,000 homes go pending. So there was a big gap in arguably the fastest paced, most pandemonium real estate market we've ever had. But what the RMLS report says, new listings are down 11%. Big whoop, right? People have lots of options right now. If you're a seller, you might have less competition today than you will 6 months from now. What are your thoughts on that? Did I miss anything? Did I mess it up? Am I dumb?
Just a little bit of a dum-dum. No. I mean, I think that's a really good point for, sellers are always trying to figure out when's the best time to sell, when the best time to sell. I mean, we say the best time to sell is when you really need to sell, but also when you have less competition. And, with them being down, because people are scared they missed their mark, or they're going to wait for prices to go back up for whatever reason. When people want to wait, it never really seems to go well, right? For whatever reason.
I think, I would change it from from need to want, because we almost never work with sellers that need to sell, by the way, right? Like if you go talk to any real estate professional, anyone who's sold their home recently, it's a want, not a need. It's always a want. Like they want to buy a new home, they want to sell and go here. It's very rare that you meet someone that has to sell and has a timeline where they have to. Even in a job relocation situation, it's usually a want more than a need. And I think that's important to know as a seller, because I think or a buyer, because I think that there's this theory or thought that if someone has their house on the market, they have to sell, so they might be desperate and I might get a really good deal. But that's really not a good belief. But if sellers put their house on the market, selling a house it sucks. It's stressful. There's uncertainty. I think for a seller, the benefit you have of selling today versus maybe January, and I believe home values will be higher in January than they are today, but we know where the market's at today when it comes to days on market and how the market's interacting with us, right? We know what the impact of a higher rate environment has done to the market. And what it's done is it's just kind of slowed pace at this point. But I think it's important if you're a buyer to know that most sellers don't need to sell their home. They want to. It's a want more than a need. Pending sales. So pending sales, they're at a big low. Now, remember, we have lower listings, we have lower pending sales. There's been a shock to the market, right? But if we look at 18,313 pending sales, even though that's the lowest we've had in the last 5 years, year to date, we're actually not that far off of 2018 or 2019, which were appreciating normal real estate markets. We didn't have the fear in the market that we have today. Like, I love the stock market. Anyone who knows me knows I love the stock market. And in the morning, I read that we're going to have a soft landing. And in the evening, it's a hard landing. And in between the middle of the day, I hear that 15 different times, depending on who I'm listening to or what I'm reading. We really don't know what's going to happen in the economy. But what we do know is that the news, they say more to terrify than clarify, right? That's what my mentor always says. They do more to terrify than to clarify. And when we look at the data, the statistics, of the market, a lot of people are pausing their buying because they think home values are going to decline. But the data would point us to something different, that home values are just not appreciating at the same rate that they appreciated last year, which in the last 30 years in Portland was the second fastest rate of appreciation. But there's nothing indicating values are going to decline. If we go back to sellers wanting to sell, not needing to, I read an article today in Bloomberg that they consider 50% of Americans, or almost 50% of Americans, to be equity rich, meaning they have at least 50% equity in their home. And then think this, there's 37% of American homeowners have no mortgage at all. So where does a housing crash come into play? Like, when do people panic sell homes that they have low mortgage interest rates on, where they have 50% equity or 100% equity? I don't get it. I don't see it. I hear the fear. Hey, by the way, we have the lowest unemployment rate we've ever had in history. Like, people need to start mass losing jobs for there to be a housing crash. I'm going to put out a video in a couple of days where I talk about the mortgage default rate in the United States, which is also one of the lowest in history. So subscribe and stay tuned for that. Pending sales. Let's talk about your experience. You have a ton of pending sales right now, a ton on the buyer side and seller side. So let's talk about how that's looked different for sellers getting an offer, maybe, and buyers getting an offer for you, Krista, getting an offer accepted.
It's been nice, one, for my buyers, right? We're going and looking at properties. We have maybe time to go back and look at the property a second, third time, to think about it, to ask questions, check in with the lender, look at what their rates are doing, see how that's going to affect them, how much they should be putting down, rather than, okay, you got 15 minutes to look at this house and you need to make a decision, and there's 15 other offers, and you need to give away your firstborn, right? Now there's a little bit more calm and a little bit more, hey, I get a minute. Sellers, right? We're still getting decent showings. We're still getting showings during the week. We're getting good feedbacks from realtors. We're having busy open houses. But depending on the home, we're gonna get, one to two offers, right? Which is still great. They're generally really close to that list price. And maybe we have to do a few repairs, things like that, but it's very normal. And it's nice. The only other time in the last, I have I think 7 closing this month, and out of all those, only one was a multiple offer situation, and that was for a very neat, unique property that was a luxury home, and it was with 2 people, and we ended up getting it, and that's great. We close next week, but out of 7 deals, only have 1 with a multiple offer situation.
Yeah, for pending.
That,
Now
yeah,
we did
pending.
we did have a $2 million land deal we got beat out on because there were so many buyers in Sherwood, right? So
Oh, that's true.
that's important for people to know too, that
Mhm.
you know the best properties are still getting offers. And I think something we need to you need to think about if you're a seller is there's homes that are selling and there's homes that aren't. Now
Yeah.
that's every marketplace. You know, people are always surprised by the number of homes that don't sell when we talk to them about that, because we think that's something important when advising our clients. Neighborhood comps are one thing, but let's say let's take if you own a home in Tigard, most people that are looking for homes in Tigard, they're also looking in Wilsonville, Sherwood, and Tualatin, and Beaverton. So your home value may be local, but your home buyer search or your home value may be neighborhood specific, but your buyer's home search is not. Right?
Right.
And because of that, there are neighborhoods that are more expensive and less expensive and more desirable and less desirable. And there's neighborhoods where homes always sell, and there's neighborhoods where only a portion of the homes sell. But every year there's homes that are left unsold in the market because someone decided either that floor plan wasn't for them, the seller decided that timing wasn't for them, or both parties agreed the price wasn't right. And that's okay. But you know, I love what Krista's outlining. We have buyers that can go look at a house, sleep on it, make an offer the next day, and get an offer accepted without having to compete and like name their child after the seller. And we have sellers that are still getting record pricing on their house. Now, maybe a little bit more stressful because homes aren't selling as quickly. But I think the big thing that I listen to as you're talking is it's normal. We're just talking about a normal real estate market. I want to forget about 2020 and 2021 because it sucked. If you sold your house, you had to go be a buyer, and it sucked. High appreciation markets, very high appreciation. It's high appreciation because it's ultra competitive. I like a real estate market that has some balance to it.
There's nothing worse than going back to your buyer who's repeatedly now fallen in love with home after home. And no matter how many times you tell a buyer, don't fall in love with this home, we don't know if you're going to get it. I mean, I do it too. You can't help it. If you're going to make it like an offer on a home, this is like one of the most expensive, things you're ever going to buy. It's hard not to fall in love with it. And then to hear time and time again, sorry, you got beat out. Sorry, you got beat out. It was gut wrenching, not only, for our buyers, but for us having to constantly break their hearts. So to go to them and be like, yeah, not only did, you get your offer accepted, but hey, you got some closing costs, or we're going to get some repairs done like that. That's exciting to be able to deliver good news more often.
Yeah, and some of these negotiations have been really tough because you have sellers still holding on to the market of the past.
Yeah.
On, representing our buyers, we've had to push harder sometimes. And sometimes representing sellers, we're having to push harder against the buyer's agent. I had a buyer's agent the other day tell me to tread lightly. And I'm like, I don't care if this deal comes together or not. And Chris is laughing because she knows me. You don't tough talk me in a real estate transaction. I don't care, right? Like someone's gonna buy that house and we're gonna have a good transaction, but I don't participate in ones where people try to bully me or my clients. That's just not how we work. So, it's funny. So anyway, let's talk about closed sales real quick, and we'll just do a quick recap for those of you who are hanging on. Thank you for hanging on and listening to us talk about the market. So closed sales. So year to date, we've had 17,804. And when we look at the last 5 years, we're actually in the second best year for closed sales. And I think that's really important because when you watch the news for the last 4 months, you think the sky is falling in real estate. But basically, we have like a city of people who have moved. Some of
my favorite.
Then we have a lot of sales. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I say this time last year, I ran into someone, they're like, "Oh, wow, you must be so busy. You must be so busy." I'm like, yeah. Things are good. It's tough. We're moving. Now, I'm noticing right now, this year, people are like, "Oh, how are you doing?" Mm-hmm. I'm like, "Great. I'm busier now than I was last year." Don't listen to everything you're reading. It's not doomsday out there. Things are good. And it's so interesting. And these are very educated people, but this is just what they're hearing on the news, right? When it comes to sales.
And I think too, for the people who are moving, because there's always people moving in every market. I remember in the Great Recession, people wanting to sell their house and having negative equity and cutting a check to be able to get out of that property so they could go buy the next property. But there's always going to be people that are moving. And if you are a home buyer or seller, it's important to work with people who understand the market, or work with people who understand the market. And what we've seen as the market shifted is we're selling more homes, not less. Part of that is more investment to make sure people are seeing our listings. Part of that is I think that there's just a flight to more experienced agents, right? Like, it's not about getting the door opened. It's about being educated. And that's the reason we do the most boring show on YouTube once a month, where we talk about the Portland housing market. If you watch my other stuff, you know, I'm a little bit geeky, but we talk about it because we believe that our clients deserve to understand the market. And we feel like our job is done when we're taking someone through the process, that they're seeing the same things that we're seeing. Like, I don't want to debate the market with my clients. I want to educate them so we can agree and we see the same things. That's when I know I've done a good job. When I'm representing a buyer or a seller. And in my role in the company now, I am more of that advisor. I don't open as many doors. We have great people here to help people with that. But I'm always here, and Krista is always here to help people through that educational process. And what's the right move to make today, right? Do we want to get into this transaction? One beautiful thing about real estate is there's always another house that's going to come to the market that you love, right? I mean, that's there's no truer rule in real estate than that. So let's do like a little summary, and then if anyone's still watching, bless you, thank you. Let's do a little summary, and then we'll be done. But what have we missed, Krista, that people should know if they're going to buy or sell a house in Portland right now?
What have they missed?
What have we missed?
Oh man, I mean, it's a great time for a buyer. It's a great time for a seller. It's a great time if you're ready to buy or sell. I think that's kind of always like something that can't be reiterated enough, right? Because there's always that panic and there's that fear. And people are worried interest rates. So you can't always time interest rates. There's options for that, right? Oh, well, now, you know, my house isn't going to get the same terms. Yeah, but you still have a ton of equity. Like there's so many positives going on right now that just don't miss out because of what you're hearing. Ask the experts, right? That actually know what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just a guy that believes in home ownership. Like, owning homes has changed my financial life and likely my family tree. So I just believe in it, right? I believe in like buying a great house in a great neighborhood and living in it and let the market do the work for you. And when you look at history tells us over and over again that real estate's one of the safest investments. And if any of us were smart enough to time the top or the bottom of the market, none of us would be watching this boring YouTube show or shooting it, right? It's difficult. But in the last 26 of 30 years, the Portland housing market has seen appreciation. And we've never had a stronger real estate market in terms of equity in a homeowner. I mean, people have a lot of wealth in their homes right now. Jamie Dimon, who's the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, he recently said that they have the lowest consumer default rate in history of that bank. And that's a huge bank. And that says a lot about where we are in the economy. And I just don't believe you see a mass wave of homes going down in value without defaults. I think it'd be very difficult to see that happen without a high level of defaults, because this isn't an asset that people just freely give away their equity. I know that from doing this for 15 years, people want to fight over $500. They have $1 million in equity and we're fighting over a $500 gutter repair, right? And sometimes our job is to point out, like, that's pretty silly, right? But they will fight over a $500 bent gutter, and that might keep them from accessing, $500,000, $1 million in equity. So funny. So if you're a buyer, I'm only telling that story because just because my neighbor drops the price of their house doesn't mean I'm going to panic sell. But there are some people in the market getting terrible advice, and we would love to help you take advantage of that sale if we could find it, if that's the right house for you. So, Krista, how do they get a hold of you?
You can give me a call or shoot me a text. My cell is 503-807-9279, or you can email me at Krista@HillshireRealtyGroup.com.
Yep, and I'll make sure our contact information is below. If you guys need anything, let us know. If you have any questions about your house and what's happening in the marketplace, not a sales pitch. We're just happy to talk to you about the real estate market and the direction, and whether you want to sell in a year or 10 years from now. We just want to earn your business and help as many people as we can. So
we will give you this boring information in person, on the phone,
and
anytime.
And most importantly specific to you and your goals, which is a really important thing of what we do, because this is an advisory business where it's not just a sales job. It's a professional advice. A lot of times I tell people my job, I'm a professional advice giver. That's what I do. So, all right.
Sometimes marriage counselor.
Hopefully we will see you guys again. If you made it through this video, we appreciate it. See you soon.